I'm going to start off
It's the usuals.
I'm going to start off with a little short video that actually makes me cry every single time. Not that I want to make you all cry, but it really kind of hits home for me and makes me realize why I'm here at Green School and some of the reasons for that. So without further ado, have any of you seen this video?
Hi.
fear that you'll be proposing more books.
Heavier books.
So, I think, yeah, like I said, it always really touches me in the whole video because I think a lot of us are here because we don't want that colour and that joy sucked out of our kids at school. We want something different for them, and I think that's why a lot of us have signed up for this adventure together. So yeah, I think all the teachers at Green School are all here trying to create some kind of magic, something different, something extraordinary. But I think we all need to remember that it is a brand new school, and that we are trying to reconceptualize almost everything that we know about curriculum and about assessment. And if you just consider that for a few moments and the immensity of that task, it's not just something that you can do very easily, because it's a kind of a major shift in education and in the way that we look at education and in the way that we assess. So I'll be looking specifically at assessment today. So I think the reason that this little video makes me cry so often is because I still, even as a teacher or as a parent, fall into that trap of getting sucked into what society expects of us. And I think all of us do. I think it's just kind of something that happens, and we have to constantly be redirecting ourselves to something new and something different. So yeah, we're all here because we want to see change, but I think we have to remember that we are at the foundation phase of the school. And metaphorically, it's still very much a building site. We haven't got all the manicured gardens, and we don't have all of the kind of fine fittings and all of those things. So it is going to take time to get to that ultimate goal that we are wanting to get to. But I can absolutely assure you, at the very heart of it, I think all of the teachers are here because we are looking at creating something different and something inspiring. So yeah. So yeah, you're all along for this journey. You all signed up for this. And you think about the kind of the foot trackers in the Oxwagons or Columbus, on his search for America, or the Star Trek fleet going bolder where no man has gone before. We've got to be comfortable with a certain level of uncertainty and a certain level of imperfection. So I think that is, as pioneers, we have to be able to consider those things. So yeah, I really hope that you will all be here to support us as teachers and be patient with us and be tolerant with us, and we hope that we are going to be good enough for all of you. And I hope that, yeah, you will support us on that journey. So that being said, today I'm going to be looking at a topic that is very important to me and very close to my heart. And it's something that I started becoming very interested in during my honours year. And we started having to look at IQ testing, and we had to administer IQ tests on our different learners. And my poor husband, we've just started dating, and I was subjecting him to different IQ tests to practice on.
But you're still married.
How did you come out?
0.
So thank you for that. But it was really
Did all your boyfriends fill in one of those?
yeah, mandatory.
I'm just picturing this.
She
It'll make a great movie.
picked the winner, huh?
Along with personality assessments, the whole, yeah, so I really started to question the validity and the usefulness of these tests that I was administering, particularly in light of the fact that we were using tests from the United States, and we were using them to assess kids here in South Africa. And yeah, so what that got me really on the road to thinking about was to really be critically engaging in this whole process of assessment. And so my one big question was always why. I always had to look at the reason we were using that particular assessment, and if it wasn't benefiting the child, why were we doing it? And so by the time I did my master's degree, like I say, assessment was something that was particularly interesting to me, and my whole research project was based on assessment and looking at the learning potential of children. So not what their static and current intellectual functioning was, but what they are capable of given the right conditions. So by the time that I had my own children, I was really primed to be looking at assessment with an incredibly critical eye. And what I was noticing that, I was constantly asking, well, why are kids having to parrot, fashion, learn this stuff? Why are kids having to sit through 2 weeks of stressful exams that seem to have no real purpose or no real value? So that was, a big reason for coming to a school like Green School. And I'm sure for many of you, you've also thought about assessment and thought about the usefulness of it and, is it purposeful? So when I assess, I really ask myself, what am I doing this for? And from my experience, most educators in mainstream school, when they assess, it's usually to get marks for their mark books. And what ends up happening is that, assessment drives curriculum rather than the other way around. So that's really something that we want to kind of be changing. So obviously your big culminating assessment would be your matric exams, and then teachers will be teaching to that particular exam. And any large issue is that these are, it's about getting kids into university. So I just want to, So a large part of our assessment is to get kids to get certain marks so that they can get into university. So what I was really inspired by is the way that they look at assessment in Finland, which is where we're going. So just let's have a look at this adapted from Finland's education system is the best in the world. What can South Africa learn from it? So Finns are motivated by the principle of equity, which is the fundamental building block in their approach to human development. They believe that nobody should be left behind. In other countries, the high achievers will be singled out and placed in the best schools. But this is not the case in Finland, which seems to not to care so much about the top 1% as much as it cares about the bottom 99%. And this approach culminates in the most favorable outcome for society as a whole. So I think, like I said, a big issue with school and mainstream education is that we are trying to prepare a small minority of children to get into university and neglecting the rest of the majority of children. So we do care about getting kids into university, but I think first and foremost, we care about using assessment to help children to grow and develop holistically. And that is our first priority in terms of what we are using assessment for. And then, And then secondly, assessment can be used to help learners to get into colleges and universities. So certainly what we will be doing is we will be offering the SATs to our learners, so they'll be able to get a Green School diploma, but then they'll also have the opportunity to write SATs if they want to get into more kind of competitive fields and they need those additional marks. But that will be an optional thing for students to do at Green School. So we will certainly provide them with the training and the experience of writing those tests. But like I said, it will be something that is optional, not something that they'll be forced into doing. So like I said, at the core, assessment must benefit the child. If the assessment measures are diminishing the child or making them feel inadequate, like happens in many schools, you get a school report, and unless you're kind of an A student at the end of the day, you end up leaving school feeling like less than adequate. And this happens to so many children. It's just kind of, they leave school with their self-esteem in tatters because of the fact that they have been assessed in this kind of traditional way. want them to grow into well-balanced human beings who care about sustainability and espouse the I Respect values. And if we go back to our mission statement, Green School's mission is to create a global community of learners making our world sustainable. So that is really at the heart of what we are trying to do at the school. So I hope that all of you that have joined Green School are on this mission with us, that you haven't just joined Green School because it's got a pretty building, but that you actually buy into what we are trying to do as a school. Okay, so the next question that we need to look at is kind of what do we assess? So we assess, we have a look at our learning outcomes, and we have a look at our Green School skills. And then we had quite a long debate amongst the middle school staff as to the assessment of values. And can you actually assess somebody's values? We all have different values, and is it a right to actually assign a number to somebody's values? So we kind of debated that, and we'll have a look at that in more detail in a few minutes. But yeah, so here are our Green School skills, and I'm sure you've all seen this document before with all the different skills that we kind of look at, and these 21st century skills. So for me personally, a skills-based curriculum makes far more sense than a content-driven curriculum, because kids can access any information in this day and age. So really, we need to be helping them with the access of that information more than anything. So I've just written down some of the skills. I mean, they are completely bombarded with information and information overload. So how do we help them to be kind of discerning with that information and to be critical of that information? So some of the kinds of skills that we want to teach them is kind of thorough research skills, how to access credible resources, and not believe everything they read. I mean, there's so much stuff out there that kids just come and, yeah, but it said it on the internet. So they need to be able to communicate their thoughts and ideas in an assertive, empathetic, and authentic way. It's all very well and good them having these ideas, but if they're not able to convey those ideas in a way that people can hear them, it's not going to be much good. So if you come at someone very aggressively, they are automatically going to become defensive and not actually be able to hear what you say. So yeah, communication skills, social skills, and they need to persevere and keep going. So they need to have grit and they need to have determination, and those are also very important skills. So I think you're all aware that on Monday, the kids are going on a little trip, and that is to provide our middle school and staff going up into the high school to really do some thorough curriculum planning. And we're going to interrogate these skills as well and see if there aren't any other skills that we as Green Schools South Africa would like to kind of add to that list. But certainly kind of grit and determination for me are quite an important skill for kids to develop. Yeah, but these skills obviously can't be taught in a vacuum. So we do need to have some kind of basis for this. So once again, we go back to our mission statement, and then we've got the UN Sustainable Development Goals, which we've used as a framework to guide our curriculum content. So that has been very useful, and if you look at the Quest projects and our thematics, we use these to kind of drive that forward. And then Celery has also been showing us the National Geographic Learning Framework, which is actually also extremely exciting, and one that we can start to integrate into our curriculum as well. And then, yeah, lastly, the values. So I think for me, this is the most important. Our value system is kind of more important than anything else. So that's just from my point of view personally. But I think if we are going to kind of solve a lot of these big issues, we need to start with things like equity and things like empathy. And if we don't have those things, how are we going to create a sustainable world? Because at the very core, I think greed is one of the biggest issues. So unless we can create a sense of equity, we are not going to be able to create something that is sustainable. So, all of us live in, very kind of these estates, and we all live a life that a lot of South Africans don't live. And that's something that we maybe also need to kind of interrogate quite critically. I think that's a conversation for another time, but nonetheless something that, we all need to think about in terms of creating equity. So like I said, we decided on not assessing the kids' values within the middle school, but rather just encouraging those values and setting a really good example for our students on what those kinds of values look like. Right, so our next big question is, how do we assess? And I think for you as parents, that's probably one of your big questions as well. How are we going to actually assess these kids, and how do we know that they are kind of on track with where they should be? So I think when the term assessment comes up, particularly when it's got to do with exams and got to do with tests, it often conjures up those feelings of anxiety and stress and very negative feelings. And it's very few people who actually relish the idea of writing exams. I think unless you kind of, ace them and you're a straight A student, it's not something that you kind of look forward to. So I think at Green School we really want to approach the how of assessment very differently, and really give kids choice for one thing, as well as an opportunity to be involved in the assessment process and to kind of shape that with us, particularly as they get into the higher grades. For them to have more autonomy and to be actually involved in the process, which I think is very exciting. We want to really draw out their strengths, and we don't want to have a kind of one-size-fits-all approach. So I'm sure you've all seen this little cartoon before, and to be honest, I've been looking at this cartoon for probably about 10 years now. And the wheels of change in education are very, very slow. And you're not seeing much in the way of a shift in terms of this. Kids are still all being assessed in the same way. And that is where I think we at Green School are really kind of making changes there. So we've already seen that within some of the assessments that we've been doing with them. So their outreach project, they had a choice as to whether they wanted to make the sandwiches, or whether they wanted to grow a garden, or they wanted to do, I think Alba, you did the $1 a day challenge. So so they had some choice there. The Quest project, that has given them a huge amount of autonomy in terms of just really doing something that they feel passionate about. And then with, for example, the English assignment that I've just done with them, we did a literature study. We were looking at symbolism in The Alchemist, and gave them the opportunity to either write a literature essay, or they could present it in a more kind of artistic way. Really wanting to look at their strengths and work to their strengths, but at the same time, I had a discussion with Leslie Medema, who's the head of academics for Green School International, and one of the things she commented on was that kids will always go and choose what they're comfortable with. So we obviously also want to extend them, so we will give them choice and assessment, but then if they find that they're always choosing the same thing, then kind of steer them towards also extending themselves and trying different things. But I think Andy's been connecting us with some incredible people, and as an educator, it's hugely exciting. So we had a discussion with the head of NIASC, the director of NIASC, who is how many of you came to the high school information evening? So we're going to be accredited by an organization called the New England Schools and Colleges, which is, I think, a really great choice from Andy, because it really looks at individual schools and what their mission statement is and whether they're living up to that mission statement. So rather than just ticking a bunch of boxes, they come in and they really assess that you are doing what you say you are actually doing. So for us as a very unique school, I think that is hugely exciting. So we connected with the director of NIAS as well as the principal from Helsinki, who is also on the accreditation board, is that correct? Yeah. And obviously people in Bali. So really building up an incredibly exciting network of people that are guiding us and showing us the way. And what they are reinforcing for all of us as teachers is that we can and we should be encouraged to do things differently and really step out of the box and step out of our comfort zone.
Perhaps I'll just step in. We're wanting to look at best practice internationally as well as best practice locally. You know, what are good South African schools doing, and what are the top international schools doing? So Jeff Bradley heads up New England Association of Schools and Colleges. He works with schools worldwide. He's been working with top schools. I've been doing the job 15 years. He really knows what quality looks like. And great to have him giving a voice to us. And talking to the principal of the International School of Helsinki in Finland. She's a commissioner for NIAS. This is a top principal of a top school, and just to have her encouraging us to do this is fantastic. That we're not whistling cheerfully in the dark here. So Kathleen was saying, I'd like to come and visit you sometime. It's so wonderful to have those people who are really in touch with what is best practice in international education. What are people doing on the cutting edge of education? I'm a great believer in being second wave. Let the innovators do all the innovating stuff, see what really works, and then follow them. So we're an innovative school, but we're learning from what's worked and what hasn't worked. And so we're wanting to then to balance that with what will success look like in our context. I think back to school, the pressure was just make sure you get good marks in trick, my boy. And my entire school career was on kind of one page. Now, yes, they do need to get good outcomes at the end of grade 12 because they do need to get into college. But in addition, what will they have learned along the way, and how will we create an assessment framework that drives a curriculum that will inspire the children to be both academically challenged, personally challenged, socially challenged, and in every way. And to have those voices speak into our school. So we've been chatting to Bali, but also good just to talk to people who are doing really interesting work elsewhere. Probably the oldest American international school is Robert College in Istanbul. And we've been talking to Robert College and putting Deirdre in touch with the person who runs their Quest programs to say, well, what are they doing? So just developing that network of schools and educators talking to like-minded people. Selry is a National Geographic certified educator, and so there's just amazing work being done by this community of teachers. And what I love about it, it's educators developing curriculum for educators. It's not a national government department handing down a curriculum to a country. And so these are really brilliant minds working together. So just know that we're connecting with some really inspiring people who can share with us best practice.
And you're all off to Finland early next year by Donkey Elva. It's hugely exciting. Craig and I had actually considered moving to Finland at one stage because of their education system. For me to have that opportunity, I think is just going to be.
So we're taking 3 of our high school team plus myself to a conference in Finland, attaching it to a visit of the International School of Helsinki in Finland, and visiting a school in Holland. Really just to inspire our team and for them to see what other innovative schools and top international schools are doing. So as we design our high school curriculum, there's nothing like sitting down, spending 2 days working with the head of maths at the International School of Helsinki. So what should our maths curriculum look like? Oh, we can use these resources and those resources. They want to talk to us about outdoor education. So we've got a lot of ideas that we can share with them. And they're really interested to hear about our education for sustainability, what we're doing with our experiential program. And we've got a wealth of experience that we can bring to the table too. Because it's got to be bring and share. The best suppers where everybody brings a plate along, puts it on the table, everybody takes a portion, and you go away with your plate full of food.
Alright, so we look at different types of assessments. So we've got assessering vir leer, assessering van leer, and assessering as leer. Okay, so firstly, assessment for learning known as your kind of formative assessment. So that would be to figure out what kids already know. So there's no point in teaching kids a whole lot of stuff that they already know, but at the same time we also need to be careful that we don't just automatically assume kids know stuff and they actually don't. So that is really quite an important part of the assessment process. And then the second one, which is obviously the one that we are kind of most familiar with, assessment of learning. So that would be your cycle tests, end of term tests, exams, all of those kinds of things. So I think for us, we try to really steer away from that whole 2 weeks of exams where kids are under a huge amount of stress and pressure, and basically come out of it, the parents learn it for a few weeks, and then by next year they've forgotten it all. So it ends up being actually, in my mind, a monumental waste of time. So we are really providing a whole range of different assessment methods. So project-based learning, documentaries, quizzes, we might do some kind of maths and science tests, essays. So there's a whole range of assessment tools that we can be using in order to look at what they have actually learned at the end of the day. And for me, I think I like to look at assessment as a cyclical process rather than a linear process. So often, kids do their term's work and then they write the exam at the end of the term and then that's the end of it. But for me, it should really be about the curriculum informing the assessment, which informs curriculum, and it goes round and round in a cycle, and that we are constantly seeing where the child is at and then reinforcing that with different methods. So if you look here, for example, this is a rubric that I put together for the Quest project. So we don't have marks as such at the moment in the middle school, but we want to ensure that they are maintaining a particular, or reaching a particular standard of work. So what we've done is they need to reach a level 3 or a level 4, and if they submit their work and they still haven't achieved that level, then we will provide them with feedback and the tools to be able to then get to that level. And we will keep using that process. The issue is that kids are not used to this. I think by the time they come up from the younger grades, this will make more sense. But at the moment, kids are used to just handing in the work, the teacher marks it and gives it back, and that's the end of it. So through this process, it's a continuous process and a cyclical process. So I think once they get used to the fact that if they submit work and it's not up to the right standard, they're going to have to do it again. And I think that will slowly help them with actually submitting work of a higher standard. But that's what we're kind of aiming for, to try and get all kids up to a level 3 or a level 4. So that they're not getting these marks on the report, but they are still being expected to maintain a particular level of work. So Andy actually provided me with this research from the Education Endowment Foundation, and this research found that feedback and metacognition, which I'll talk about in a few minutes, are the most useful tools that we can provide children with. So giving them very specific, very detailed feedback is really extremely helpful in terms of their academic development. I don't agree with this one, but if you dig down into the research, they were talking about if you continue to offer education the way it's offered, smaller classes actually don't make a difference. So if you teach 30 kids the same, it's not going to make a big difference. But if you are giving detailed, proper feedback, I think small classes are absolutely essential.
Can I just talk to what that is and what it isn't? The University of Durham have a group that work within it called the Centre for Evaluation and Monitoring, and sort of under that umbrella is the Education Endowment Trust. And this organisation just looks at, the study was the quality of research. So there are a whole lot of studies done on feedback or metacognition or ICT or after school care. How good is the research? And then if you implement this program, what will the benefit be in terms of months of progress, and there are a number of metrics by which they're measuring that, and the cost per pupil. So it's a bang for buck graph. That's all it is. So it's saying, teaching assistants will cost you a whole lot, but they're not going to improve academic outcomes. In fact, you can see one of the things that we're deeply committed to as a school is providing a very good ratio of teachers to children, and we're convinced that it has benefits in the classroom, and that we're seeing really positive benefits in terms of having that support in the classroom. Similarly, smaller classes, I think the fact that every teacher here knows every kid's name, but more importantly, they're not teaching to a mass, but that there are different teachers are really able to differentiate. So it's not as simple as that. And if you dig down into the data, it's a bang for buck analysis. But why I shared it is just in terms of effect and cost, right at the top is feedback and metacognition. Metacognition is learning how to learn and learning how you learn and understanding your learning style and so on. That really improves student outcomes. So in terms of just how important is assessment and how good is feedback, the right feedback given at the right time and the right way to the right person really improves outcomes. So it's a bang for buck exercise. But have a look at Education Endowment Fund Toolkit, and then you can dig into each of these and just what they've looked at, what the research really shows, how robust is the research. It's fascinating research to read. This is what gets me excited on the weekends.
So yeah, metacognition. So out of those three areas that we looked at, this is the assessment as learning. So I guess it's a relatively new idea compared to the other two. It's not unique to Green Score, but certainly we are going to be very intentionally applying this idea of metacognition to the whole assessment process. And as Andy mentioned, it's about thinking about your thinking. And if we allow children the opportunity to kind of think about their thinking, they can really get a sense of where their strengths and weaknesses are. They can kind of reset their goals if they're kind of going off track. And they can also get an idea of assessing themselves more accurately. So you sometimes find some kids really overinflate their abilities. So you ask them how they've done, and they're always like, oh yes, it was perfect. I really don't need to do any more on it. And then you get the other kids who are, go the opposite way, where they really kind of don't bolster themselves, or they always see themselves as doing more poorly than they actually do. So I think through this process, kids are able to then see themselves more realistically, and that's always very beneficial. So they get insight into their performance. And I think it also allows them to kind of look at their own value system. If you become self-reflective, you can start to reflect on your own level of compassion and your own level of empathy and your own level of, those different types of values. And I think it was important about, in terms of what Esby was saying last week in terms of behavior, and being able to self-assess becomes extremely important. So I think